Most people think a stunning garden is the result of years of experience, a big budget, or some kind of natural talent. But the gardeners with the most beautiful yards this summer, a lot of them just made one smart decision in May. They planted these 20 perennials, not annuals that die in October and need to be replaced next spring, not shrubs that take a decade to do anything interesting. Perennials, plants that come back every year, get bigger every year, and ask less and less from you over time while giving more and more back. And right now, while the soil is warm and the season is just opening up, is exactly when these plants want to go in the ground. You plant them this month, and by July, your garden will be in full color. By next year, it'll be even better. By the year after that, you'll have neighbors stopping to ask what you're doing differently. Today, I'm giving you the 20 most beautiful perennials to get in the ground right now, ranked from impressive to absolutely jaw-dropping. Stick around, because number 18 on this list can bloom in the same spot for 100 years with almost no care. And number 20 looks so fragile that people assume it's fussy, but it laughs at neglect, reseeds itself for free, and comes back stronger every single year without you lifting a finger. Hit that subscribe button, because every week we post videos that help you build a garden that works for you, not the other way around. Let's get into it. Number 1, Black-Eyed Susan, Rudbeckia, the unbreakable gold standard. Let's start with the plant that proves perennial gardening doesn't have to be complicated. Black-Eyed Susan, those golden yellow daisy-like flowers with the dark chocolate centers that you've seen growing wild in roadside ditches, meadows, and prairie fields across North America. There's a reason they grow there. Nobody plants them. Nobody waters them. Nobody fertilizes them, and they come back every single year without fail. Rudbeckia hirta and its many cultivated cousins are among the longest blooming perennials you can grow. Plant one in May, and it will be producing flowers from midsummer all the way through the first hard frost. We're talking 3 to 4 solid months of color from a plant that genuinely doesn't care if you forget about it. Here's what makes Black-Eyed Susan special, beyond the obvious toughness. Pollinators absolutely lose their minds for these flowers. Bees, butterflies, and beneficial wasps flock to the nectar. And when the flowers go to seed in fall, goldfinches and other songbirds feed on them through winter. You're not just planting a flower. You're building habitat. Plant them in full sun. Give them decent drainage. That's it. They handle drought, poor soil, heat, and humidity. In fact, too much pampering, rich soil, extra fertilizer makes them floppy and weak. This is a plant that thrives on neglect. Think of Black-Eyed Susan as your garden's anchor, the plant that holds everything together while fancier, more demanding things around it come and go. It's the reliable backbone that proves beauty and toughness aren't mutually exclusive. Number 2, coneflower, Echinacea, the pollinator magnet. Echinacea is where the perennial garden gets its pulse. Those distinctive raised cones, surrounded by drooping purple or pink petals, aren't just beautiful. They're wildlife infrastructure. Plant coneflowers in May, and by July, you'll have a living buffet of pollinators so active it'll stop neighbors in their tracks. Native to the North American prairie, Echinacea purpurea has been used medicinally for centuries. It's the same plant that becomes the echinacea in your immune supplements, but its garden value goes far beyond herbal medicine. These are drought-tolerant, heat-resistant, deer-resistant perennials that actually get better with age. Here's the key thing most gardeners don't know. Leave the seed heads standing through winter. Don't cut them back in fall. Those cone-shaped seed heads become critical food sources for birds like goldfinches and chickadees. You'll watch them cling to the stalks in January, harvesting seeds, and you'll realize your garden is working 12 months a year. Coneflowers spread slowly by self-seeding and clump division. Plant 3 in May, and in 5 years you'll have a dozen. All free, all from the original plants. They cross-pollinate to create natural variations. Every year brings slight differences in color and form. Number 3, Shasta Daisy, the classic that never fails. Some plants earn their reputation through generations of gardeners proving they work. And Shasta Daisy is the definition of that. Those bright white petals surrounding a cheerful yellow center have been lighting up cottage gardens, farmhouse borders, and cutting gardens since the late 1800s. There's a reason they've never gone out of style. Leucanthemum superbum is a vigorous, clump-forming perennial that blooms prolifically in early to midsummer and often repeats if you deadhead the spent flowers. Plant in May and you'll have blooms by late June that last for weeks. Cut them for vases. They last beautifully indoors. What makes Shasta Daisy the workhorse of the white flower world is its adaptability. Full sun, decent soil, reasonable drainage. It takes over from there. It naturalizes into large clumps over time, which you can divide in spring to multiply your planting for free. Plant Shasta daisies behind shorter plants so their cheerful white faces look back at you over the tops of neighboring plants. They're the perfect contrast to the hot colors of coneflowers and Black-Eyed Susans. In garden design, they provide the visual rest that makes everything around them look more vibrant. Number 4, blanket flower. Gaillardia, non-stop color from summer to frost. If you want a perennial that simply refuses to stop blooming, blanket flower is your plant. These fiery, bicolored flowers in combinations of red, orange, and yellow look like something a child would paint. Bold, uninhibited, electric. And they bloom continuously from late spring until hard frost without you doing much of anything. Gaillardia grandiflora thrives in exactly the conditions most gardeners dread. Poor soil, full sun, blazing heat, and drought. These are native prairie plants that evolved to survive on minimal resources, and that frugality becomes your benefit. Skip the fertilizer. Skip the extra watering. They'll actually bloom more. Here's the practical magic of blanket flower. In a border filled with plants that have distinct bloom windows, Gaillardia is the constant. It fills the gaps, bridges the transitions, and keeps the garden looking alive during the late summer doldrums when many perennials have finished their peak. Deadhead regularly in peak season to encourage continuous bloom. In late fall, let the seed heads stay. Birds enjoy them. Divide the clumps every 2 to 3 years in spring to keep them vigorous. Number 5, lavender. The fragrant foundation. Lavender is where the perennial garden becomes an experience for every sense. That unmistakable fragrance carries on the breeze. Bees hum through the silver blue flower spikes. The soft, silvery foliage holds its form, even in winter. Plant lavender in May, and you're not just adding a flower, you're adding an atmosphere. Lavandula angustifolia has been grown in gardens since ancient times. In Greek, Roman, Egyptian, and medieval European gardens. It's been used to scent linens, preserve food, calm nerves, and repel insects for thousands of years. That's not trend. That's track record. Here's what most gardeners get wrong with lavender. They kill it with kindness. Rich soil, extra water, heavy mulch. These are lavender killers. This plant wants sharp drainage, lean soil, full sun, and to be left alone. Plant it on a slope, in gravel, or in raised beds where water runs away quickly. Then ignore it. Harvest the spikes just as they're opening. Bundle them. Hang them upside down, and you have dried lavender that fills a room with fragrance for months. It's a cut flower, an edging plant, a pollinator habitat, and a sensory experience, all in one. Before we get to the shade lovers and the tall, dramatic spikes, let me ask you something. Are you starting to see the pattern here? Every one of these plants gives more than it asks for. That's the perennial philosophy. You make one investment, in time, in a plant, in a hole in the ground, and that investment pays dividends for years, sometimes decades. If that resonates with you, smash that like button right now. It helps this video reach other gardeners who are tired of replanting every spring. And if you're not subscribed to Homestead Roots yet, click that button and ring the bell. We're building a community of gardeners who grow smart, grow simple, and grow with nature instead of against it. All right, let's keep going. Number 6, hosta, the queen of shade. There are gardeners who act like shade is a problem to be solved, but gardeners who have discovered hostas know the truth. Shade is an opportunity, because in those dim, dappled corners where sun lovers struggle, hostas create lushness so rich and textural that it stops you mid-stride. Hosta species and hybrids produce enormous leaves, some the size of dinner plates, in colors ranging from deep forest green to glowing chartreuse to cool blue-green to gold, with edges and centers variegated in cream, white, and yellow. The diversity is staggering. There are thousands of named cultivars, and every one of them is essentially indestructible once established. Plant hostas in May in any spot that gets morning sun and afternoon shade, or dappled light under trees. They will grow there, thrive there, and multiply slowly into impressive clumps. In midsummer, they send up stems of small lavender or white flowers that are lovely in their own quiet way. In fall, the foliage turns gold before dying back, and then it all returns next spring, bigger than before. The practical magic of hostas is their longevity. A well-sited hosta can live for 50 years in the same spot. You plant it once, you divide it occasionally, and it gives you decades of beauty in return. Number 7. Bleeding Heart. Unique drama in the spring garden. Bleeding Heart earns its place on this list through pure originality. There is no other plant quite like it. Those long, arching stems, decorated with rows of perfectly heart-shaped flowers in rose pink or pure white, each with a tiny teardrop protruding from the bottom. They look like something from a fairy tale, and they appear in May when the garden is just waking up. Lamprocapnos spectabilis blooms in spring alongside tulips and early perennials, then gracefully disappears below ground in summer heat. This is actually a feature, not a flaw. Plant summer-blooming perennials nearby to fill the gap as Bleeding Heart fades. It's part of the seasonal choreography that makes a well-planted garden interesting in every month. Bleeding Heart thrives in the same shaded, moist conditions that hostas love, making them natural companions. Plant them together, and you get spring drama from Bleeding Heart, followed by summer structure from hostas. Two plants doing two different jobs in the same space, the same soil. The white-flowered variety Alba is particularly elegant, softer, more ghostly, beautiful in woodland settings. Both colors attract hummingbirds and early emerging bumblebees. Number 8. Astilbe. Feathery flames in the shade garden. Astilbe does something that sounds almost impossible. It brings dramatic vertical interest to moist, shaded spaces. Those feathery plumes in red, pink, white, and lavender rise above deeply divided, ferny foliage in summer, creating a display that feels tropical in its lushness, but is completely cold-hardy. Plant Astilbe in May in a spot with consistent moisture and partial shade, near a downspout, beside a pond, in a low-lying area that stays damp. While most perennials struggle in these wet shade conditions, Astilbe thrives. It's doing a job that few other plants can do. Here's what elevates Astilbe beyond its immediate bloom season. After the plumes fade, the dried seed heads remain attractive for weeks, eventually turning a rich reddish brown. Leave them standing into winter. They provide texture, movement in the wind, and visual interest long after the color has gone. Combine early, mid, and late blooming Astilbe varieties, and you can extend the display from June through August in the same area. It's like buying 3 plants worth of season in one well-chosen spot. Number 9. Heuchera, coral bells, foliage as art. Most flowering perennials give you great color for a few weeks, and functional foliage the rest of the year. Heuchera flips that completely. The foliage is the show, and it runs all season long. Modern Heuchera cultivars produce leaves in colors that border on surreal: deep burgundy, copper orange, caramel, silver, lime green, and black purple, many with contrasting veining or ruffled edges. They form tidy mounds of color that anchor border edges, fill container combinations, and provide the visual contrast that makes neighboring plants look more vibrant. In summer, they send up slender wands of small flowers, pink, red, or white, that hummingbirds absolutely love. Here's the design secret of coral bells. They're the punctuation marks of the perennial border. Tucked between taller plants, they create visual breaks, define edges, and provide color continuity when everything around them has gone between bloom cycles. The garden looks intentional, curated, considered, even when it's growing on its own. Number 10. Delphinium. The towering blue, spire blue, is the rarest color in the garden. True, deep, sky-filling blue. And Delphinium produces it more magnificently than almost anything else. Those towering spikes, 4, 5, 6 feet tall, covered in flowers that range from pale sky blue to the deepest indigo, with a white or black center called a bee, create a vertical drama that reshapes the scale of the entire garden. Delphinium elatum and Pacific hybrids bloom in early summer from May plantings. Position them at the back of a border where their height creates the backdrop for everything in front of them. Stake them. The wind will eventually get them otherwise, and after the first bloom flush, cut the spikes back to encourage a second, smaller flush in late summer. Delphiniums are hummingbird favorites, and the tubular flower structure is perfectly designed for hovering birds. In a garden that values wildlife, a stand of delphiniums is essentially a hummingbird diner. These are not the most low-maintenance plants on this list. They want rich soil, consistent moisture, and protection from wind. But the payoff, that wave of impossible blue in June, justifies every bit of the effort. Number 11. Lupine. Vertical color. Early, when little else is blooming. Lupine blooms in late spring, right in the gap between early spring bulbs and midsummer perennials, and it fills that gap spectacularly. Those dense, upright spikes in purple, pink, yellow, white, and bicolored combinations are some of the most architectural forms in the entire perennial world. Lupinous species grow from taproots and do not transplant well, which is why May planting from container-grown plants matters. You get them in the ground early. They establish in cool weather, and they bloom the same season. After bloom, the attractive palmate leaves remain all season, and the seed pods that follow are interesting in their own right. Here's the ecological bonus most gardeners don't know. Lupines are nitrogen-fixing plants. Like legumes, they host bacteria in their roots that pull nitrogen from the air and store it in the soil. Plant lupines, and you're literally improving your soil for every plant around them. They prefer cool climates and may go dormant in summer heat. Let them. They come back reliably the following spring, often spreading by self-seeding into larger colonies over time. Number 12. Foxglove, the dramatic self-seeder. Foxglove occupies a unique category. Officially, a biennial that behaves like a perennial. In the first year, it produces a low rosette of leaves. In the second year, it sends up those spectacular 4 to 6 foot spikes, covered in tubular flowers, in cream, pink, purple, and white, each spotted with contrasting markings on the interior. Then it sets seed, abundantly, and the cycle begins again. Plant foxglove in May, and within 2 to 3 years, you'll have self-sustaining colonies that drift and naturalize across a bed without any intervention. The flowers always appear where they're needed, filling gaps, providing height, surprising you with their placement. It starts to feel less like gardening and more like collaboration. Digitalis purpurea is a critical plant for bumblebees, whose long tongues are perfectly sized to reach the nectar deep in the tubular flowers. In areas where bumblebee populations are under pressure, a stand of foxglove is meaningful conservation planting. Note, foxglove is toxic if ingested, so be mindful in gardens where small children have access. But for most landscapes, this is a plant that takes care of itself while producing some of the most theatrical blooms in the garden calendar. Number 13. Bellflower Campanula. Elegance that spreads itself. Campanula species are the perennial garden's quiet overachievers. Those cup or bell-shaped flowers in blue, violet, and white seem delicate, but the plants are vigorous and adaptable, spreading gently to fill spaces without becoming aggressive. Planted in May, most varieties will bloom their first year and return reliably for decades. Campanula persicifolia, peach-leaved bellflower, sends up tall, slender stems lined with elegant blooms above a low rosette of leaves. Campanula carpatica, Carpathian harebell, stays compact and mounding, perfect for border edges and rock gardens. Both are stunning. Both are easy. The blue shades of Campanula are among the clearest, truest blues in the garden. Where delphiniums offer drama and scale, Campanulas offer grace and intimacy. They're the flowers you want to crouch down beside and look at closely. They tolerate partial shade, making them versatile in transitional areas where sun fades into shadow. They self-seed moderately, spreading gradually into soft drifts that look deliberate, but happen on their own. Number 14. Salvia, the long-blooming hummingbird magnet. Perennial, salvia might be the most straightforwardly useful plant on this list. Long bloom season? Check. Hummingbirds and pollinators? Constantly. Drought tolerance? Excellent. Deer resistance? Among the best. And the deep blue and purple spikes complement almost every other flower color in the garden. Salvia nemorosa and its cultivars, Caradonna, May Night, East Friesland, are workhorses that bloom in late spring, take a brief rest, then rebloom if you cut the spent spikes back. Plant in May in full sun and well-drained soil, and these plants take care of everything else. Here's the season extension trick with salvia. Combine early, mid, and late varieties for continuous bloom from May through October. While one variety rests between flushes, another picks up. You can maintain a constant ribbon of blue through the entire growing season. Salvia foliage is aromatic, another deer deterrent, and the plant maintains an attractive form, even when not in active bloom. It's the plant that earns its garden real estate every single week of the season. Number 15. Catmint, Nepeta. The fragrant silver blue spreader. Catmint is the plant that experienced gardeners return to again and again because it simply performs. That soft mound of silver-green aromatic foliage covered in a haze of blue-purple flowers from late spring through summer. Shear it back after the first flush, and it blooms again, and possibly a third time. It edges paths beautifully, spills over walls, and fills the gaps between roses and shrubs with effortless grace. Nepeta X. Fasani and its cultivars are among the most deer-resistant, drought-tolerant, pollinator-friendly plants available, and they smell extraordinary. Sharp, herbal, cool. Crush a leaf between your fingers, and the fragrance is immediate and refreshing. Here's the design principle that makes catmint invaluable. Those cool blue-purple tones and soft silver foliage make every warm color around it look richer. Plant it near roses, near yarrow, near blanket flower, and the contrast intensifies everything. It's the plant that makes other plants look their best. Plant in May in full sun to light shade. Cut it back hard in midsummer for a fresh flush of growth and flowers. Almost nothing else requires so little to give so much. Number 16. Penstemon, beard tongue, the hummingbird highway. Penstemon is where the perennial garden becomes a wildlife corridor. Those tubular flowers, in every shade from white to pink to red to deep purple, are shaped by evolution to match the feeding style of hummingbirds. When penstemon blooms in late spring through summer, hummingbirds appear as if by signal, hovering at each flower in precise sequence. Native penstemon species are adapted to challenging conditions: poor soils, drought, rocky slopes, temperature extremes. This makes them among the most sustainable perennials available, requiring almost no resources once established. Plant in May in full sun with excellent drainage, and then simply let them grow. Beyond hummingbirds, bumblebees, and native bees are important pollinators of penstemon, whose tubular shape filters out smaller insects while welcoming bees large enough to access the nectar. Combine penstemon with salvia and catmint for a pollinator-focused planting that hums with activity from May through August. 3 plants, 1 design intention. Create habitat while creating beauty. Number 17. Yarrow, the hardy workhorse, with flat-topped flowers. Yarrow has one of the longest histories of any garden plant. Achillea millefolium gets its name from the legend that Achilles used it to treat wounds on the battlefield, and it's been used medicinally across cultures for thousands of years. But its garden value is purely visual. Those flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, red, and pink rise above ferny, aromatic foliage from early summer through fall, and they cut and dry beautifully. Yarrow is essentially indestructible. Poor soil, full sun, no water, it thrives. It spreads slowly into colonies by underground rhizomes and can be divided every few years to control its spread and increase your planting. The flowers are magnets for beneficial predatory insects, parasitic wasps, hoverflies, lacewings that prey on garden pests. If you have a hot, dry, difficult slope that nothing wants to grow on, plant yarrow. It will cover that slope, hold the soil, provide season-long color, feed beneficial insects, and ask for nothing in return. Plant in May in the fullest sun you have. Forget about it. It will bloom. Number 18. Peony. Blooms for a century with minimal care. Here's a number that will reset the way you think about garden investment. A peony can bloom in the same spot for 100 years. There are peonies blooming today in New England farmhouse gardens that were planted by great-great-grandmothers. They outlast the people who planted them. They outlast the gardens around them. They just keep coming back. Paeonia lactiflora produces those enormous, impossibly lush flowers, doubles, semi-doubles, and singles in white, cream, pink, coral, and red that are among the most beautiful of any plant on earth. The fragrance is intoxicating. The bloom season in late spring is brief, 3 to 4 weeks, but so spectacular that it feels like a seasonal event worth anticipating all year. Plant peonies in May in full sun with rich, well-drained soil. Here's the critical detail that determines success or failure. Don't plant them too deep. The eyes, the red buds at the crown, should be no more than 1 to 2 inches below soil surface. Too deep, and the plant will grow leaves but never bloom. It sounds fussy, but it's a one-time consideration. After planting, give them time. The first year, modest growth. Second year, stronger. Third year, blooms begin. By year 5, a well-established peony is one of the most breathtaking things in any garden, and it will be that thing for the rest of your life and your children's. This is the plant that makes the strongest possible argument for perennial gardening. One plant, one hole, one afternoon, and it pays dividends across generations. Number 19, iris. Elegant and self-sufficient. Iris carries a kind of regal simplicity. The bearded, beardless, and Siberian varieties all produce those unmistakable flowers. 3 upright petals called standards. 3 drooping petals called falls. In color combinations that no other flower has figured out how to replicate. Deep purple with yellow beards. Pure white with blue veining. Copper and rust and bronze. The color range is extraordinary. Plant iris in May for establishment. They appreciate time in the ground before winter, and most varieties will bloom the following spring, with increasing vigor each year after. Bearded iris wants full sun, and the rhizomes actually need to bake at the surface in summer heat. Don't bury them completely. The tops of the rhizomes should be visible, sitting at or just above soil level. Siberian iris is a different character. Graceful, vase-shaped clumps of fine foliage with smaller, more elegant flowers. It tolerates moist conditions and partial shade, filling the niche between sun lovers and true shade plants. Iris divides easily every 3 to 4 years, multiplying your planting from the original investment. After 20 years, one rhizome becomes dozens. It is one of the most generous, self-multiplying plants in the perennial world. Number 20, columbine, Aquilegia. The delicate, tough one. And here we are. The plant I saved for last, because it is perhaps the most quietly extraordinary plant on this entire list. Columbine. Those nodding flowers with their distinctive backward projecting spurs, hovering on wiry stems above lacy, blue-green foliage. They look like they belong in a botanical illustration. Fragile, intricate, impossibly delicate. And then you discover what they actually are. Aquilegia species are tough beyond their appearance. Cold hardy to extreme temperatures, tolerant of poor soil, partial shade, and variable moisture. They bloom in spring when the garden is transitioning from early bulbs to summer perennials, bridging that visual gap with color in blue, purple, red, yellow, white, and bicolors. Long-spurred hybrids look almost like exotic birds in flight. Here's the magic that puts columbine at the very end of this list. It self-seeds, abundantly, freely. Once established, it spreads through your garden at its own pace, naturalizing in the cracks and crevices and shaded spots where other plants don't venture. And because it crosses readily with other varieties, the colors shift and evolve each generation, producing new combinations you never planned and couldn't have bought. Hummingbirds reach the nectar at the tip of those backward spurs. Bumblebees chew through the spurs from outside, bypassing the design entirely. And somehow this gives columbine a kind of personality, a plant that different species interact with in different ways. Plant columbine in May in a spot where you'd like it to eventually naturalize. Then let it do its thing. It will self-seed, drift, spread, and fill your garden with its delicate-looking but thoroughly indestructible presence, year after year after year. Think of it as the plant that reminds you what perennial gardening is really about. Not control, not perfection, but partnership. You provide the space and the time. The plant provides the beauty, the wildlife value, and the gentle, unstoppable will to return. 20 perennials, planted in May, and every one of them asks the same simple thing from you. A little space, a little time, and the patience to let them establish. The gardening industry will always push you toward annuals, plants that need replacing, soil that needs amending, fertilizers that need applying, and products that need buying. Perennials disrupt that model. You plant once, You tend occasionally, and then for years, sometimes decades, sometimes a century, they give. If this video helped you see your May garden differently, if you're leaving here with a list of plants instead of a list of chores, smash that like button. Drop a comment below and tell me which one you're planting first. Are you Team Black-Eyed Susan and Coneflower for the easy sunny border? Team Hosta and Bleeding Heart for a shaded retreat? Or are you going all in on a peony for the long game? Subscribe to Homestead Roots if you haven't already. We post every week, and every video is designed to help you grow smarter, not harder. See you next week.